Okay, so we're chasing a pretty decent finish, and although this is just hand painted, there are some techniques and procedures that make it better than normal, and I find the average painter doesn't know how to apply caulking in a finer way, and I'm going to explain what I call blade caulking. All millwork requires things to be caulked, and I'm using a white in this case because we're going a cream base on this. If it was a dark colored base, I wouldn't actually apply the caulking until after the first coat of paint, and then I would use a clear. That way if it does crack, it doesn't open up a white line. The things that I like to do, because we're doing fine millwork, is I cut the end square, not on a diagonal, and it has a very small opening. I have a wet cloth to keep my knives clean and also to wipe off stuff, keep my hands clean. I have a standard knife to get into corners, a 2-inch spackle knife, thin, and this one I custom grind depending on what my shapes are. Now the thing with caulking is much of the mistakes made are carpenters, you do that prior to the painter showing up, and that's a terrible mistake for a couple of reasons. One, if carpenters have a caulking gun at the top of their toolbox, their joints are crap and they're using caulking. But I understand the dilemma that row housing builders have left them in, and of course that is their arsenal. What we're after here is crispness, and so the important thing to remember is if you caulk prior to priming, the caulking will always fall out. Caulking sticks better to paint than it does wood. It always did. You should always prime first. It rolls into the cracks. The caulking sticks to it better. It wipes off better and doesn't smear grain and stuff like that. So what sort of caulking are we talking about? Well, here in particular, there are, some minute holes, and that's inevitable with, millwork that's designed for residential to be installed. Okay? And so how do we put caulking in to fill those gaps with our finger, which is the standard applicator for a painter and a carpenter, is to just put it in and squeeze it. Okay, so obviously inside corners are pretty bad, and obviously a big round radius here with caulking would destroy the aesthetic crispness of these moldings. And if we didn't care about the crispness of these moldings, then we would just buy anything off the shelf. Off the shelf moldings have got fancy words like eased edges and that sort of thing, and what that means is there's no crisp edges. It's easy to paint. It's pretty boring stuff. It catches the light horribly, and it's not as exciting. So how do we deal with details like this with caulking? And let me show you what I do. So because this is a very small caulking nozzle, we're going to put that in there, and the first thing we'll do is we will push it into our hand, and I'm wiping that with this. Now here's what the blade caulking does. Now I ground that one specifically for this job, this knife I ground. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually scrape that out and actually re-crisp that edge. And the thing that you do here is, you know, you always drag your knife. If that's the hole you want to fill, you don't drag your knife that way. You drag it in the direction that the knife, and there's the hole. And then that gets wiped with the cloth. We go in, we check that out. That's really nice. It's nice and crisp and clean, that corner. It doesn't got a big wow in it, okay? Outsides are pretty easy. So we'd put a bead across there, okay? We're going to push it in. We're going to get our knives. And we're going to scrape it out to maintain crispness. And you can see in that case I did pretty good on not tearing out a lot of material. And I've done the whole thing. But that's called blade caulking. Like here it's pretty easy, so we'll lay a bead in. We'll rub it in. And we're pushing it in. Because the gap's that way, we want to scrape it off this way. You can see I've removed quite a bit. Then we'll do this way. We're moving quite a bit. But that remains very, very crisp. And of course we can maintain inside corners. Sometimes what we'll do if there's a big gap is we'll push down with the knife, clean it out. Once you become proficient at this, it's very easy, and you are not creating garbage work. We now, of course, because we primed, we now do the caulking, and this is all rough from raised grain from the primer, so we'll sand, and then we'll prime everything again. If areas need another application of caulking, then we'll do that then. But for now, this is all we do, and everything stays crisp. We don't have those inevitable big things, fingers in the corner and whatnot. And this brings it to a level that is much more sophisticated. Anyway, we're still on prep, and we're still prepping nail holes. So we're checking for nail holes next, and we will not even be close to applying the actual color, which is the easiest part of painting. Painting is all prep. Thank you.